Hey, what's up, y'all? This is William, the permaculture consultant, and today we're going to do another permaculture Q&A. Now, if you don't know, it's a segment where I answer your guys' permaculture questions. You leave them down in the comments with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning of your question. That way I don't miss it, and we'll get to it in a future video. Oh, also, we are going to be having, me and the Texas boys are going to be having a homesteader meetup. I'll leave the address down below. It's free for everybody. Whoever wants to show up, no matter where you live. It's going to be in Texas, but feel free to travel if you would like to. It's going to be at a pretty cool garden club, and it's going to be a meetup on May 4th, I believe. All the details will be down below in the description. But yeah, hopefully see a bunch of you guys there. That'll be exciting. That being said, let's go on and get to the questions. So this one is from Silver Lining 650. In one of your videos, you mentioned fire ants. I believe you said the fire ants, will take care of themselves. Can you elaborate on this subject? I've not been able to get rid of my fire ants on the property and would love a solution. So, I was recently just given 2 different ways of getting rid of fire ants, but I'm going to show you guys 3 different ways to get rid of fire ants right now. The first one is just dump boiling water down into their hole. Haven't tried it. I haven't really had much experience with it, but apparently, like I said, 2 people independently just recently told me that was a solution to it. Another solution apparently is orange oil, water, and dish soap. If you dump that down into their hole, that apparently is a solution. Now, I just did a video on doing the chop and drop in my garden, so this is a little bit of a spoiler alert. But there were areas in this garden right here that had ants. In fact, here's one of their mounds right here. Now, if I were to kick it beforehand, there would be a ton of ants just crawling out. And as you can see, there are absolutely no ants crawling out, which is insane. Literally, the only thing I'm doing, I mean, this was a huge ant mound. This right here was a huge ant mound. And there's absolutely no ants. Like, before, my boot would be covered in ants, but as you can see, it's not. And literally, the only thing that I've done here to get rid of the ants, because after I tilled up this garden and made the raised beds and everything, the ants came back with like a vengeance. And the only thing I've done since then is like plant plants. Right now, like the first thing I planted was clover cover crop, and everywhere that clover has come in thick, the ants are completely gone. Now, I guess I'm going to give away this whole chop and drop video, but there is another area over here. Oh, right, it's over here in this carrot bed. This spot right here. Yeah, right there at the tip of my finger. That is an ant pile that is still very much active. And the carrot bed did not do as well. The clover didn't come in as thick. The carrots did come in, but it's just the clover in this bed isn't nearly as high as the clover it is in the other beds. But also, this one had way more disturbance done to it after the seeds were planted. So that was a long way to just say, I think if you change the soil biology again, the fire ants will go away and they will be replaced with worms, because I saw a ton of worms in these beds and they weren't there before. So, as the famous saying goes, like, if you don't have fire ants, you have worms. If you don't have worms, you have fire ants. I think they're serving a similar function in the soil. I think the fire ants are leaving back or behind some pretty doggone good castings and stuff. So I wouldn't get too mad at them. I understand that, you can't have your kids around them and stuff like that, and you got to be cautious, but give them time, plant a cover crop, and eventually they'll get evicted by the worms, I think. From Chamberlain Media, starting to reclaim land in 9A, mostly pine and incense cedar. I'm looking to get the soil balanced as I begin to replant. I have terraced a sloped area using old logs, duff, and dirt. 2 questions. What ground cover will help balance the soil during the decomposition process? Also, I have collected large bags of shredded documents from work. I was planning to mix it in with the rotting logs, duff, and dirt as I continue to layer my area I'm terracing. Do I need to worry about any dyes or bleach used in the paper? All right, so first question. Cover crop that'll work well for you is probably cowpea and buckwheat. You will definitely need to water it to get established, but cowpea is one of those things that can reseed itself very, very quickly, so I would check that out. And now, as far as mixing in the paper with your soil and making terraces out of it, I definitely would not do that. Okay, so your organic materials, you never want to mix in or till in with the soil, because that's not how nature necessarily breaks things down. Once it's incorporated into the soil, it's much, much harder for the natural microbes to make that exchange. So instead, what you should do is apply it to the top of the surface, or the surface of the soil. Like, for example, these trees right here. When they fertilize the forest and stuff, they're gonna drop their leaves. It's gonna land on the surface of this forest right here. That will be incorporated into the soil with the macroarthropods, the microarthropods, the soil microbes, the bacteria, the fungi, all that stuff. It'll be broken down and made available to the soil. If you mix it in with the soil, you're making it harder on the microbes to actually decompose it. For example, if I were to take cardboard and I were to leave it in a full sheet and I were to layer it on the soil and then cover it up with some sort of carbon, not soil, but carbon, within a season or two in my area, I could see that just completely disappear. If I were to bury the cardboard, however, it's going to be there for considerably longer. So keep that in mind. Cowpea and buckwheat for your cover crop, and your cardboard or paper products should be added to the surface of the soil. Also, to answer your actual question, I would not worry at all about the dyes or the bleach. The bleach is most likely not even an issue, and the dyes are probably soy-based at this point. All right, next question from Prep to Adventure. Not really a question, but can you talk about hyper accumulators? I've heard sunflowers are good at cleaning up contamination, and some species of trees clean up salts. Okay, there's two schools of thought when it comes to hyper accumulators. There's some people that think there are certain plants like sunflower, like comfreys, stuff like that, that they're able to shoot roots down into the soil, soak up the toxins, and then contain them within the plant. Toxins or minerals or nutrients and stuff like that, not just toxins. Now, as far as trees fixing salt, the trees are pumping sugars into the soil, which in exchange is changing the pH and locking up some of that salt, increasing the water, allowing that to be soaked up by the plants, and then decreasing the salt in the soil. Now, that might be a similar situation as to what's going on with hyperaccumulators. The other school of thought is that the hyperaccumulators aren't necessarily themselves soaking up the toxins, but they're providing sugars to the microbes that are actually locking up the toxins in medium and long carbonic acids. So the point of what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that either way, the solution is to plant something, is to grow something. So if you're trying to fix the soil, the best solution is grow something. The next best solution is make compost. Now, there is a category of plants called pioneer species. Those species are really good at growing at very minimal soil life areas. For example, like when Jeff Lawton used the nitrogen fixers in Jordan, they were there to first establish a presence in the soil, and also provide a canopy for the future plantings. But also it's shooting down, like I said before and over again on this channel, it's shooting sugars into the soil, feeding the microbes, and changing what needs to be changed in the soil for the next succession of plants. This next one is from, oh man, it's hard to read, Jeremy Taylor 9607. Sorry, the sun is actually showing on my phone. It's hard to see right now. Permaculture Q&A, what would you recommend planting along a relatively slow moving creek? So that's going to kind of depend on where you are living, like what zone you're in, and also what's already around the creek. So some of the things you can plant are like chinkapin oaks if you're down south. I don't know what the zone limit is on chinkapins. Like swamp mayhaw, that's another one. You could also plant like currants, that's another example. But you could also just plant like your elderberries, what else has like wet feet? Mulberries, stuff like that. Plant those around your creek, depending on the application. But mulberries, cool thing about that is that there's a variety of mulberries there is at least one variety of mulberry that should fruit no matter what climate you're in. So that's pretty cool. So mulberry for sure, I guess. But yeah, I would check out actually hitting up the Permies forum. I don't recommend Permies very often, but there's a lot of people who do have a wide variety of scenarios that they post about on Permies. So if you were to check up like or look up plants that have like wet feet, and then you should be able to find a specific forum to your growing zone. So that's permies.com, if anybody's wondering. All right, so I got 2 questions from Tamber Smith. The first one, and then they're both talking about elderberries. The first one is elderberries, where to plant? Will your animals eat the berries, and will it hurt them if they do? It will hurt your animals. I can't remember if it's arsenic or cyanide, but it's high in, or it has a minimal amount of that in the berries. All of your animals are affected by it except for your chickens. Like birds are good to go when it comes to raw elderberries. And then the next one she said is, I have heard that you should plant elderberry trees by a pond. That would also work by a creek. I have 2 that need to be planted. Will the raw berries hurt the horses and cows if they eat them? Yes, they will. Accumulate toxins. I think it's cyanide. It will accumulate cyanide in your horses and cows. It might not kill them. It might take them a very, very long time to kill them, but why put them through that? I would be careful with it in general, and anything, especially anything that you plan on eating. I'm not entirely sure where the cyanide accumulates in the body, but if it's the liver, I personally like to eat liver, and if it's accumulating cyanide, then that's a downside to me. Also, if it's going to put any extra like harm or stress to your animals, then I would stay away from anything like that. But buy your chickens should work because they're just fine. All right, this next one is from Joshua 511. I have some mature calorie pears that send up shoots. What's the best way to harvest these for rootstock? Can I separate from the parent tree and just put in a pot? Should I cut sections and use root hormone? If so, what time of year? Zone 6B, Missouri. So I would recommend taking softwood cuttings just because I don't know, I've just had a higher success rate with softwood cuttings than I have hardwood cuttings. Most trees you're going to be fine with doing softwood cuttings. Let me show you an example. Let's pretend that this right here is what's coming from the base of your tree, your rootstock. Let me go ahead and pull this off so it's not confusing. There we go. What I'm going to do is count 3 nodes down. So there's 1 node, 2 nodes, 3 nodes. And I'm going to cut this at the end below this bottom leaf node right here. See if I can do it one-handed. There we go. All right, there we go. And I'm going to strip this leaf off, I'm going to strip this leaf off, and I'm going to leave just the top leaf, like that, just on top. And then I'm going to stick this in the ground up until I hit this top node right here. And yeah, I'm going to just let it root. Make sure you plant it right side up. And the best time to do that is like while the plant is vegetative. You don't want to do it after all the leaves have fallen off. Otherwise, that's a hardwood cutting. So yeah. Hopefully that was beneficial to you. Remember, you're gonna need to, in order to get that calorie pear, if it's grafted, well it is because you're saying it's rootstock, in order to get like a nice variety of edible pear, you're gonna need to root that cutting from the rootstock, cut the top off, graft on a new scion with a preferable fruit on top. That way you don't have the rootstock fruit, which either A, doesn't produce or tastes really, really bad. Just has really good roots, which is why we're growing a better fruit on top of it. All right, now last question is from user Co1XU6NE3Y, another computer generated name. Can willow be used as a nitrogen fixer or for chop and drop? Willows are very, very good for using as a chop and drop. They are not nitrogen fixers though. They're an easy way to determine whether or not something is a nitrogen fixer is just find out if it's a leguminous species. Most leguminous species of any like category of like trees, shrubs, bushes, ground cover, any of those guys, vines, all of those guys are nitrogen fixing. Willow, however, is a very, very fast growing tree that can put a lot of sugar into the soil, feed the bacteria and the fungi and all that stuff very, very quickly. Also, they can help with erosion, they can help with compaction. They're just an all around really, really good tree. And also, if you take the 1 year growth or 1 to 2 year growth and cut them up into like 1 to 2 inch sections, put them in a jar of water, let it soak for 2 weeks, you have the world's best root growth stimulant. So the previous question about like the root cuttings and all that stuff, don't use rooting hormone. Try to use willow water if at all possible. like they can't manufacture anything that works better than using willow water for stimulating root growth. If you want to up it up just a little bit more, add some comfrey to that willow water. And comfrey has a chemical or compound in it called allantoin, and that helps with cell growth, like cell repair, like it sheds any dead cells and stuff like that. So it's really, really good for just putting on those roots. So if you guys have any new permaculture Q&A questions, or if you need consultations, then hit the links down below. Can't wait to see you guys May 4th, and until next time, we'll see you.